All right, let's dive into an incredible story. It's a story of global conquest, a brilliant strategy, and silent warfare. But our conquerors, they're not armies or empires. They're plants. I mean, think about it. They cover almost every single inch of our planet. So today, we're going to break down the absolutely ingenious reproductive strategies they use to pull it all off.
And that right there is the central puzzle, isn't it? If you're literally rooted to one spot, how do you multiply? How do you expand your territory and make sure your species survives for millions of years? Well, it turns out plants have two genius master plans up their leaves.
So the first strategy is all about speed and certainty. To lock down the land right under them, some plants deploy what you can basically think of as a clone army. They just make perfect copies of themselves, and they do it fast. Now, the scientific term for this is asexual reproduction, and it's just what it sounds like, reproduction that only needs one parent. No flowers, no seeds, no partners. It's the plant's way of saying, hey, I'm doing great right here, so let's just make hundreds more of me.
This whole strategy can be incredibly simple. On a microscopic level, you see it right here with yeast. A parent cell just grows a little bud. That bud is a perfect genetic copy, and eventually it just pops off to become a new individual. It's direct, it's efficient, it's cloning 101.
And you've almost definitely seen this happen in your own kitchen. You know those little eyes on a potato that's been sitting in the pantry a bit too long? Each one of those is a bud. It's like a pre-packaged starter kit for an entirely new potato plant, a perfect clone of the original. This is called vegetative propagation. Some plants get even more creative. It's wild. This is Bryophyllum, and it literally grows new baby plants, called plantlets, all along the edges of its leaves. And when these little clones are ready, they just drop right off and start a whole new life on the ground below. What a clever way to colonize the area right around the parent plant. So this whole clone army strategy gives them a huge advantage. For one, it's way faster than growing from a tiny seed. It's also a much more certain method. It's practically guaranteed. And, maybe most important, it ensures that all the successful traits of the parent plant are passed on directly. It is a fantastic strategy for total local domination. But cloning has a big weakness. What works perfectly today might not work at all tomorrow if the environment changes. So for long-term survival, for conquering new and different territories, plants needed another strategy. They needed to mix things up, create some variation. In other words, they needed to find a partner. And this right here is the brilliant solution. The flower. You know, a flower isn't just there to look pretty. It is a highly sophisticated piece of reproductive technology. It's the plant's purpose-built machine for creating genetically diverse offspring through sexual reproduction. Let's break it down, kind of look under the hood. First, you've got the male parts, which are called the stamens. You can see the filament, that's the stalk, and right on top is the anther. The anther's whole job is to produce the super important pollen grains, which carry the male reproductive cells. And then you have the female parts, often called the pistil. Way up at the top is the stigma, which is usually kind of sticky, designed perfectly to catch that pollen. The style is the tube that connects the stigma all the way down to the ovary. And inside that ovary are the ovules, the future seeds. Okay, so the plant has all the parts. But remember our big problem? It can't move. This creates the next huge challenge. How in the world do you get pollen from one flower's anther to another flower's stigma, especially if they're far apart? Well, welcome to the great pollen delivery service. This whole process is called pollination, and it is the single most critical step in plant sexual reproduction. It's that moment of transfer, the act of bridging the physical distance between two parent plants. And as this shows, there are a couple of ways this can happen. Self-pollination is when pollen moves from an anther to a stigma on the very same flower. But for real genetic mixing, the ultimate goal is cross-pollination, moving pollen between two totally different plants. And to do that, you're going to need some help. And this is where the real genius kicks in. To solve the problem of distance, plants hire messengers. They actually recruit agents from the world all around them, insects, the wind, even water, to carry their precious genetic cargo for them. And here is the most famous messenger of all, the bee. As it buzzes from flower to flower drinking nectar, its fuzzy little body gets completely covered in pollen. It becomes an unwitting but incredibly effective delivery driver, making sure that cross-pollination happens.
And what's so cool is that flowers are specifically designed for their messenger. Flowers that use insects are like bright, flashy advertisements. They're big, they're colorful, and they offer a sugary reward, nectar. Wind-pollinated flowers, on the other hand, don't need to show off. They're small, kind of dull, and instead of nectar, they produce just massive amounts of lightweight pollen, basically playing a numbers game and hoping some of it lands in the right spot.
So once that pollen delivery is successful, the final phase of the mission kicks off. This is the payoff. This is where a new life is created and packaged, getting it ready to be sent off to conquer totally new territory.
Here's how it all goes down. A pollen grain lands on the stigma. It then grows a tiny little tube all the way down through the style until it reaches an ovule inside the ovary. The male cell travels down this tube and fuses with the female cell inside, and that fusion, that's fertilization.
And this is the magical transformation. After fertilization, that ovule develops into a seed, which contains the tiny embryo of the new plant. And at the very same time, the ovary that's surrounding it begins to swell and ripen, becoming what we all know as the fruit.
This shows the result perfectly. The fleshy part of a tomato or an apple, the part we love to eat, is actually the ripened ovary of the flower. Its main purpose isn't to be our snack, but to protect those precious seeds inside, and, just as importantly, to help them get spread far and wide.
Which brings us to the final mission, dispersal. I mean, a seed that just falls to the ground has to compete with its own parent for sunlight and water. So plants use their messengers again. Animals eat the tasty fruit and deposit the seeds somewhere else. Light seeds get carried by the wind, and some seeds can even float on water to find brand new shores.
So, from clone armies for local control to engineering flowers that hire animal messengers for long-distance travel, plants have solved the ultimate biological challenge. They've figured out how to conquer the world while standing perfectly still. It really makes you wonder, right? What other silent, brilliant strategies are unfolding in the natural world right outside our windows?